Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and today we have Rael Bricker with us. Rael, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Great to join you from Perth, Western Australia.
Awesome. For our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what you do?
So I am a speaker, author, mentor, and coach. I have been a serial entrepreneur for 35 years. I've listed companies on two stock exchanges, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the Australian Stock Exchange. I started an education business that had 4,000 students before we listed it in South Africa, over 6 campuses. I started a financial services business in Australia in 2001 that I still own today, and that has done over 3.5 billion Australian dollars in mortgages for clients. In 2013, I had a major health scare when I was training for a marathon, and I ended up having 2 cardiac stents, and that changed my focus, and it gave me a new lease on life. I've always been a speaker. I've always been on stage, but I made that my full-time career from 2013 as a professional, motivational, inspirational speaker, talking about business, leadership, culture, strategy.
Okay. At what moment you decided that excellence is very important in a business journey?
Okay, so I was working on these 3 areas called leadership, culture, and strategy. And I worked out, and I've developed actually my own tool called the Business Excellence Indicator that actually measures leadership, culture, and strategy. And if you could imagine in the air 3 intersecting circles, one being leadership, one being culture, and one being strategy. And I came up with this model that said that middle bit, the intersection of those 3 is excellence. And if you invest in leadership, culture, and strategy, you get what I call a return on excellence. And so that's that's the first part of the story. The second part of the story is that I found the best definition of excellence being that we can never be perfect. And if we try and be perfect, but we're excellent, then we've done really well. So in other words, perfection is unachievable. So let's try and be perfect. But if we're just excellent, well, we've done really well. And excellence is showing up as the best version of yourself every day.
Okay, yeah, doing good enough. We can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. So being excellent is a wide variety of things. It's showing up as the best version of yourself every day. So I'm a firm believer in giving back to our community as part of my ability to grow my own businesses. And one of the things I like about being a speaker, coach, and mentor is that you see change in people. You're giving of yourself. And I'm speaking in a few hours' time after we've recorded this podcast. I'm doing a 2-hour talk. And I will be absolutely drained after a 2-hour talk because I'm spending 2 hours giving of myself to the people in the audience.
Okay, what practice or habit do you recommend to help leaders and team consistently pursue excellence?
Okay, so there are a few. I call them the 4 pillars of excellence or 4 pillars of optimism. And the first of those, everybody in the world today uses Google Maps or Waze or some other GPS, but yet we don't think about the GPS as our life. And what I mean by that, when you get into your car and you put on Waze or Google Maps, it doesn't ask you where you were yesterday. It doesn't ask you how badly you drove yesterday. It asks you a simple question. It says, where do you want to go today?
Yeah.
Okay. And so if we apply that same philosophy to every morning we wake up and we say, where do we want to go today? What is the direction we're going? That's the first critical element. And part of that, I mean, I'm a firm believer in life-work balance, and I exercise 6 days a week, and I have a balance when my kids were growing up, spending time watching my kids at school. All those things are normal for me. But when I break it down to these 4 pillars of excellence, the first of those is being able to define our GPS, to say, where are we going, not where were we? The second of those pillars is to develop the ability to communicate that vision. So the same way that Google Maps tells you, turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right, we need to be able to communicate that vision to the people around us. So where we're going, we need to be able to tell people in a step-by-step place, that's where we're going. The third aspect is we often get caught up in negative talk, right? That didn't work. That didn't work. What are we going to do now? That didn't work. Well, let's change the narrative. let's change the narrative to say, what did work? What did work in the past? Let's repeat that again.
Uh-huh.
Not like the GPS says, what did you do yesterday? It's not.
Uh-huh.
It's saying what worked for us in the past, either personally or in business or in any aspect of our life. What worked?
Uh-huh.
So let's do that again. Let's not throw that out, and let's not focus on the negative talk. Let's focus on the possibilities, not the problems. And the fourth aspect, where I started out by talking about when I was training for a marathon, and I'm a
Uh-huh.
hockey player. I played hockey at state level. And so I've always been fit and healthy. And I know um, in many countries in the world, obviously play field hockey, not ice hockey, field hockey, right? That's the
Uh-huh.
white ball on the green surface. When I talk to Americans, I have to explain what I mean with hockey. Okay. But I played hockey at a state level. And when I started running long distance, I got a running coach because I said to him, I run 50 meters in each direction carrying a stick. I don't know how to
Uh-huh.
run 5, 10, 20, 40 kilometers.
Yeah.
And he took me to the bottom of a hill. And he said, run up the hill. And I said, you mad? And he said, no. He says, and that's the fourth principle here. Don't look at the top of the hill. Look down at your feet. And every single step that you take, and suddenly you look up and you're at the top of the hill. But when you look up at the mountain, all you see is this massive mountain and you go, I can't climb that mountain. But if you look
Uh-huh.
at your feet and you take simple steps running up the hill, you get to the top of the mountain and you go, I made it just by taking small steps.
Uh-huh.
Brings us all the way back to the GPS. The GPS doesn't say, go 5 kilometers down the road. It says, go 100 meters, turn left, go 200 meters, turn right. It brings that whole model together. That said,
Uh-huh.
small steps to achieve big things. And those are the
Yeah.
four principles of excellence. As I see it, as I implement them in my life, as I implement them in my clients' lives, my clients' businesses, that's what we work through, is how to do that. And there's lots of things that fit around that, lots of strategies that fit,
Uh-huh.
whether it's strategic planning, whether it's AI systems, whatever, doesn't matter. But as
Uh-huh.
long as we stick to those four principles, we're on the road to creating excellence.
Okay. So who are your ideal clients? Who do you help?
So my background's engineering. So I'm attracted, engineering clients do get attracted to me. And the difference is that I spend my life as an engineer trying to find the cause of problems,
Uh-huh.
because that's what we trained as engineers. Find the cause of the problem before you find the solution. And suddenly my mindset has changed the last few years.
Uh-huh.
I don't care what the cause of the problem was. Let's just find the solution. In other words,
Uh-huh.
that same idea. Let's not, where were we yesterday? We don't care. Let's go, where do we want to go today? So, and I use a quote from Jack Welch, who says, the soft stuff is the hard stuff. As an engineer, I always looked at the hard stuff, the numbers,
Uh-huh.
the statistics, the KPIs. Now I look at the soft stuff: leadership, culture, strategy, optimism, inspiration. What I do now, that's how I work through it. And so my clients are, major engineering firms. I did some work recently for a building company, a renovation company. But then I
Uh-huh.
also did work for a fresh fruit produce company, an accounting practice or two, financial planning practices, wide range of topics, because I look at a 360-degree view of business. So I don't work in a narrow industry because the
Mhm.
principles are the same in any business that you talk to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so can you share some of your success stories?
Um, there have been lots of them, but some of them are proprietary to companies, and that's the
Yeah,
problem. Like
yeah.
companies. I
Uh,
mean, I have one of the testimonials that's on my website.
uh-huh.
One particular one was a talk I did in Canada, in Whistler, in the mountains in Canada, for a financial services group. And one of the unsolicited testimonials that came out of it said that I've changed his life and changed the lives of others. Okay. And why did I do that? Because I got them to focus. And the book that I published actually, oops, I'll grab a copy. And by the
Uh-huh.
way, I'll give you a URL by email. The book is called Dive In, Lessons Learned from
Uh-huh.
the School. And I'll give you a URL for free downloads of the book for any of your listeners. The book says on the back that business is not complicated. Business is simple.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you just dive in and adjust your course while you're moving. And I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the biggest impact I've made on people across the board over the last number of years that I've been speaking is they've suddenly got to realize that they're overthinking their decisions. When you're in a major corporation and you have to get everybody's trying to hide behind someone else's decision, and suddenly you're saying to people, it's okay to make a decision and even make a bad decision. It's a mindset shift. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. I mean, one of the programs I started during COVID was a 14-week academy program. So up until that point, I'd only be doing workshops and keynotes. And I launched a 14-week academy program during COVID. I wasn't making a lot of money out of it, but I was getting incredible passionate success because I had all these small, medium enterprise businesses spending 3.5 months with me, and I saw them grow and I saw them change. And I saw how they implemented the things that we were talking about in their businesses. And that made a difference.
Okay. So what role does optimism play in driving business results and organizational changes?
Okay. So optimism is actually a strategic advantage because if you create optimism in your team, all right. So there's a saying, it's not that famous. There's a saying that says when the leaders are optimistic and excited and inspired and they're jumping up and down and shouting from the rooftops, the rest of the team members just roll their eyes back and go, not again. Okay. Okay. And so that's the problem is that your leaders need to be able to translate that optimism that they have. And that's why I came up with the 4 pillars of excellence. They're all related because part of the first pillar is defining where you need to go. How are you going to get from point A to point B? All right. So one of the frustrations, where did I learn this? I worked underground on the mines 38 years ago, 39 years ago. And I used to frustrate the hell out of my bosses because I was an engineer and I wanted to know how did my work as an engineer fit into the grand scheme of the organization? We were on a gold mine. We were trying to get gold out the ground, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to know how did my work in this little narrow field impact getting the gold out the ground? Nobody could understand what I was talking about. And that was my frustration because nobody in the organization at a senior management level was communicating this vision, was actually disseminating the vision of where the company was going. Everybody was caught up in their little box.
Yeah.
They didn't understand how their box fitted in with the next box. Okay. And two people working side by side next to each other didn't know what the other one did because no one was interested. They were so narrowly focused, like the racing horses with blinkers on. And that's my biggest frustration. And so that's where that idea of optimism came from. If you are optimistic as the boss and you can share that optimism and share it with your team and bring the team along and celebrate the wins. Okay. We try and avoid something called BMW meetings. Okay. So what's a BMW meeting? Bitching, moaning, and whining. Okay. So the average corporate meeting, the first hour, everyone's complaining. They're bitching, they're moaning, and they're whining. BMW. Okay. All right. So you try and change that mindset. You try and change that mindset from bitching, moaning, and whining to a positivity, to what have we done well in the past? How do we do that again in the future? So when you do those things, when you put those things into place, that's how you create optimism in the organization. People go, oh, that worked, not that didn't work, which is a negative mindset. Oh, that worked for me in the past. And it's not about what worked for Atul is good for Rail. No, it's what worked for Rail and how do I duplicate that success? Because success breeds success. When people are successful, they breed success around them.
Okay. So what are your top tips for entrepreneurs who want to grow fast and sustain that growth?
So the biggest, and everyone says it's people, and I agree with that. Technology is cheap today, right?
Yeah.
So in any organization, you're not really constrained by technology anymore. You were 10, 20 years ago. Now our biggest constraint is people. So Richard Branson was asked and said, what happens if you train people and then they leave? And he said, but hang on, what happens if I don't train them and they stay with our organization? Okay. All right. And so yes, so the idea of 30 years ago that somebody got a job and stayed in that job for 35 years is long gone. So as a boss, what you have to do is accept that people join your organization and some will stay for 20 or 25 years, but some of them will stay for 5 or 6 or 7 years and then leave. Not because they're unhappy, just because we live in the time of Google and Siri. We live in the speed of things happening and speed of technology. People just feel they need to be challenged again. And so half of the world will change jobs every 6 or 7 years just because they feel challenged. How do you build growth and sustainability? You don't look at those 6 or 7 year windows. You look at the now, the next year, the next 2 years. You bring people along on that journey. If they love the journey and they keep being challenged. So in the book, one of the chapters that I talk about is about challenging people, right? Keeping your team challenged, keeping them amused. Why do I enjoy the finance industry? Because every single client is different. Every single person, our 14,000 clients that I've dealt with over the last 25 years, every one of them has a different story. That's kept me happy. That's kept me challenged. That's kept me engaged. And so if you create an organization where you challenge your team, you keep your team engaged, you motivate it, all those things add to this fast growth because so that's one part of it. I've spoken about sharing the vision and bringing people along on the journey for the vision. And yes, money is important, but ultimately every psychologist has proved that money is not the sole motivator of people. And so, the last 20 years in my finance business, my credit card has been used for lunch every single Friday. So maybe you should come visit, you get a free lunch on a Friday. Okay. All right. But it's become part of the culture. Everyone looks forward to having lunch together on a Friday. And one Friday every 6 or 8 weeks, we'll go, let's have a late lunch and have a beer together.
That's why.
But that's the culture of the organization.
Yeah.
But I can go home at 4 o'clock. I travel as a speaker, so I still own my financial services business. I can travel 2 weeks around the world speaking, and my team will know to manage all my clients while I'm away. And they'll text me and say, by the way, Joe Bloggs called and he wanted to know XYZ. Can you answer him? And I'll answer them, or I'll even call Joe from overseas if I need to. I'm so confident in my team and the culture we've created that they are happy to look after the place while I'm not here.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to get help from you, want to buy your book, want to connect with you, where can they go?
Raelbricker.com, very easy. And if you go to the free stuff on raelbricker.com website, there are a couple downloads for free. The one is my colors test, which tells you all about your behavior. One is a free book, a copy of Dive In. They're welcome to buy Dive In on Amazon or any other Booktopia or any other of the major sellers. The paperback version, but if they're happy with the PDF version, can download it or free stuff on the website. Connect with me on LinkedIn is probably my best business medium, or any emails that come through off my website, I respond to. So
thanks, Rael. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, and it was really fun chatting with you.
No problem. You've been smiling. That's a good thing.